Good morning, everybody. All right, I'm looking this way because we have a giant TV over there so that I can see how that presented on the screen. Good morning. It's almost 7:30. Lao Shi is almost here. He is getting something, but we're going to starting today. The Min Jie level 1, week number 3, day 2. So my name is Eileen Han, the Academy of Acupuncture. And we are going to have our Lao Shi here for our day 2 of the herbal class. Work harder. I am also working on all my single herbs to get them familiar, to have that muscle memory, to be able to use them, how to add it to your formulas. Is a lot of work, I know, but you know that you already know this, and you just have to continue use it. And just like anything, just like a back of your hand. So you know everything when you are using your herbal formulas. So when you listen to your patients, then you know whatever they said, you say, oh, didn't sleep well, what would you need to do? And also what meridian goes to, what if a gout is on the big toe, what kind of herbs go to the big toes, and what meridians over there. So that's very important when you know all the microcosmic circle, sorry, you know the name of that, something like orbit. So yes, that is what we need to learn and get it familiar with. This is your lifetime learning. I encourage you to do this every day. So let's move this focus to Lao Shi, and don't forget, after lunchtime, we're going to have a photo shooting today. Ooh. So we're going to take a class photo. So Lao Shi, take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Shimo. So I love hearing our Shimu talk at the beginning of our classes because she reveals a lot of what's happening with her process as she's talking. And it's good because that gives me a great window into what all of our students' process is. So one of the things that's wonderful about Shimu is she's a very perfect student, right? Very perfect. She does everything like she's totally supposed to do, right? So that can work for us and it can work against us with the Min Jie also. Because one of the things that I heard her say and discuss is that she's learning the herbs and learning about the herbs. One of the reasons why the main reason why I'm teaching things the way that I'm teaching them. And big part of my point is that I don't want you to learn everything about the herbs. This is really, really, really important. Because, and way back at our first class, I was talking about this a little bit. The worst place to keep information is in your head, okay? So if you can really learn the structure of what we're talking about, you don't have to put any of that information in your head about the herbs. This is really, really important because if you fill your head full of all these different facts about the herbs, what's going to happen is your head is going to get full of all those different facts. And when it comes time in that clinical moment to do what you need to do, your head is just going to start cooking with all these different possibilities. So what I'm teaching you how to do is instead, you look at the patient and you go, boom, just like the Japanese swordsman, right? You cut right to exactly what you need to do. And once you know what you need to do, then you can go to our reference materials and just look it up. So literally, you don't need to know anything about the herbs to practice what we're talking about here. I know it sounds ludicrous, it sounds insane, it sounds dumb. But this is really what I advocate doing. And then what's going to happen is over time, you're going to learn more and more about the herbs. You're going to get more and more familiar with the herbs. But we never want that to supersede this idea of using the structure to determine everything, Okay, it's going to determine the structure of your treatment principle. It's going to determine exactly what you need. That's going to tell you where to go and what to look up. And then from the whole pharmacopoeia, it's going to boil down to just a few choices. And then you can differentiate between them using the 3 T's. Okay. If you keep it that simple, I guarantee you're going to become a master herbalist in no time. But if you get hung up in trying to like memorize things and memorize the herbs, it's going to be a long road. Okay. It's going to be a long road in any case, but what'll happen is that if you practice in the way that I suggest, that over the course of that long road, you're going to have success after success after success. You're going to be clear, and you're going to get more clear as you learn about the individual herbs in an organic way, like what we're talking about. Whereas if you try to stuff everything into your head, it's going to obfuscate everything. It's going to make everything less clear. So this is the difficulty with being a good student sometimes. We have this idea of what we're supposed to do. And it's like I said in the first class, there are only certain kinds of autistic people who can literally memorize the entire pharmacopoeia like that. And even if they do, they don't necessarily know how to apply all this vast universe of knowledge, okay? So what I'm saying is, let's be the Japanese swordsman. Let's cut right to where we need to get to, do what we need to do. That way, in context, we will learn about the herbs one by one, small group by small group, and go like that moving forward, okay? Yeah, hang on, I'm gonna open up the chat here so I can see what, yeah, memorizing is challenging and it's counterproductive. That's what I'm trying to tell you guys. It's counterproductive actually to try to memorize all that stuff. So be in the relief, Matthew. I'm giving you permission. Please be in the relief. Focus on the structure and don't let it go. Okay. And then it's going to be an amazing experience, I guarantee. Okay. So that's going to make a lot more sense as we go through our day today, because I'm going to give you a completely different layer. Thanks to your guys' participation over the entire course of what we've done so far, we're actually on track. So I can get to what I really wanted to talk with you about and really wanted to teach you about this weekend. So this is the first time that we've actually gotten here, because we're actually going to go into the emergent structures, begin to go into the emergent structures, so you can get a little bit more of an idea of the complexity and the power of using the herbs in this way. Okay, it's a very, very unique idea, and this is what we're going to be doing. Okay, so with that, I want you to close your eyes and imagine a green tree. And in this tree is a green bird. And then there's another red and green bird. And a silver bird. And a blue bird. And a purple bird. And a white bird. Watch how all these birds interact in this green tree. Listen to their songs. Listen for their songs if you can hear them. Just for a moment, imagine that whole scene. And then come back. And we're going to get going with our first group. Okay? So our primary channel for the first group that we're going to be working with today is going to be the Foot Jue Yin Liver channel. Okay? We can use any channel as a primary channel. Okay? We're just beginning here because this is where we begin our entire cycle. Life starts with wood. Okay? So here's how we're going to do it. And you'll see why as we go along here. Okay, so I want you to pull out your pencils and your paper, right? And we're gonna start to draw something. And I want you just, don't get hung up in the drawing process. I want you just to draw this out as quickly and spontaneously as you can. And this is a process that is actually going to be a series of exercises that I hope you will begin to practice, because it's going to help you a lot with learning about these different relationships that we're going to be talking about today, these balanced relationships, okay? So get your paper and your pencils, or just grab anything to draw with. I don't care. You can pick any color you want, anything, just grab something to draw with. Whatever you do, do not do this on a computer. It's really important not to do this on a computer. You need to have a tactile, something in your hand and a piece of paper to draw on, okay? So grab it and begin to draw. And what I want you to do, we're gonna draw, and I'm gonna talk us through just very quickly the liver channel. And I'm gonna want you to draw the whole thing out, okay? So begin at the dorsal hairy region of the big toe at liver 1. That can just be a dot on your page. But remember, we're going to be drawing the whole liver channel. Okay, so keep this in mind. And this is a part of what we're doing. We're trying to get a spatial orientation here, and we're embedding this in your body. Okay, so now draw a line that goes up the dorsum of the foot. I don't care if you draw a foot or not, it doesn't matter. Okay, draw that line ascending up the dorsum of the foot to a point 1 cun anterior to the medial malleolus. That's going to be liver 4. Okay, then keep going up that leg. Okay, it's going to intersect the foot spleen, foot Taiyin spleen, foot Shaoyin kidney channel, spleen 6. Okay, so that's down there in the lower leg. Keep going up the medial aspect of the lower leg, okay? And then that meridian is going to cross, that liver is going to cross the spleen again, 8 cun above the medial malleolus. Just keep it going up, okay? It's going to go posterior to the spleen, across the knee, up the medial aspect of the thigh to the pubic hairy region. You can have fun drawing that, okay? And it's going to curve around to spleen 13, spleen 12, around the inguinal groove there, curving around the genitals and going into the lower abdomen. And then it's going to, that line is going to come to the center. It's going to meet the Ren at Ren 2, 3, and 4. Now it's going to go up and curve around the stomach. It's going to enter the liver and network with the gallbladder. It's going to ascend through the diaphragm, spread through the hypochondrium and the costal regions, and connect with the throat and the neck, posterior to the pharynx. Draw quickly. Enter the nasopharynx. Connect with the tissues surrounding the eyes and the eye system. Then it's going to emerge from and ascend across the forehead and meet the Du channel at Bai Hui. Then another branch from the eye system is going to go from the eye down into the cheek. Then it curves around the lips, around the inside of the lips if you want to get detailed. Then another branch, go back down to the liver. Branch separates there. It crosses and passes through the diaphragm and goes up into the lungs and connects with the Hantayan lung channel in the lungs. Okay, now we're going to do the low. All right. So go back down to liver 5 on the medial aspect of the lower leg there, okay? And it's easy. Just connect a line to where the gallbladder channel would be, and it ascends up to the genitals. Okay. Then you're going to make another line that diverges from the normal channel somewhere in the foot and goes up to the pubis and connects with the gallbladder there, the pubis. So it's very similar to what happened before, right? Okay, and then for the muscle channel, it starts at liver 1, and it basically just goes up and ends at the genitals. So just scribble that in really quickly. Now, you should be asking me at this point, do I just want you to draw one side or two sides? Okay. For now, I just want you to draw one side. Okay, it doesn't matter which side, but for now, I just want you to do one side. Don't try and do both sides at once, because that turns into a whole other thing, which is really, really important. And I'm going to want you to do that, but not today, or not right now anyway. Okay. So you're going to have that on a piece of paper, whatever it looks like. Okay. And there should be some questions that come up as you draw that. Some questions in your mind. Wow, how does this work together? How does the liver channel go and curve around the stomach and then wind up in the liver? It's going to look different on the two different sides. This is one of the super interesting things about the channel theory and about our balance system, is because we use the symmetry and the lack of symmetry, both, in our treatments in order to attain balance. So this is a part of knowing the territory. Okay, now this is going to get really interesting, because on this same piece of paper, we're going to draw the pericardium channel and how they relate. Okay, now don't get hung up in how funky it looks or anything like that. I just want you to kind of scribble it out, because as you scribble it out, what you're seeing is you're seeing your actual map that as it exists right now. This is your actual map of how these channels interrelate. Okay. And that's going to hopefully improve over time through doing this exercise and some of the others. Okay. So begin in the pericardium in the chest, whatever that is. Okay. So just begin somewhere in the chest, the pericardium, whatever that is for you. Okay. And draw a line that descends across and through the diaphragm, down into the abdomen to network, okay, with the middle and the lower jiao. It was already in the upper jiao, so it's connecting all three jiao. That's the first thing the pericardium does, connect all three jiao, okay? And another branch runs along the inside of the chest and comes out superficially into the costal region, 3 cun below the axillary fold. Okay. And then it comes up into the axilla and goes down the medial aspect of the upper arm between the lung and heart channels into the middle of the elbow there, and down the forearm between those two tendons, and goes in the palm and goes all the way out the tip of the middle finger. And then one branch goes from Lao Gong and goes out to the tip of the ring finger to connect with the Sanjiao. Easy to draw. Okay, now let's do the low. So go to P6, Neguan, okay? And this low, it flows up the pericardium channel to go into the pericardium and the heart. So it flows in the opposite direction, doesn't it? Up into the pericardium and the heart. Okay. Now, start 3 cun below the axilla again. Draw another line that goes into the chest. And it communicates with the Sanjiao. Okay. Goes up into the neck, and connects with the Sanjiao channel, and then goes up to the area posterior to the ear. Okay, and then go back down to the tip of the middle finger and draw a line that just goes up the channel again, all the way to below the axilla where it started in that external pathway, and connects together with the ribs. And then another branch from that line goes into the axilla, the armpit, and goes into the chest, and it converges in the diaphragm. And it connects with the lung muscle channel in the diaphragm. Okay, so based on what we just drew, what can we say? What can we say? What is this relationship between these two different channels? So what we're doing is we are exploring the name relationship between the liver and the pericardium. Okay, what is the spatial relationship? Where do these things physically interact? Where don't they physically interact? Okay, what kinds of physical dynamics do they have? This is the anatomy of this relationship. And I want you to think about this, and I want you to look at what you drew and see, okay, and realize that whenever we invoke this name relationship between the liver and the pericardium, this is the territory, this is the physical territory that we're talking about. So it's important to know what that physical territory is, because you might wind up, if you know this territory really thoroughly and kind of figure out what the physical interaction is or lack of interaction is between these channels, you might figure out there's a whole lot of things that you can do, not just for this relationship, but for all the relationships. This is why I want to do it in this way. We'll get used to, I found in the last class that people's ability to visualize really falls apart very, very quickly. Like maybe they might be able for a second or two visualize one tiny little thing. But in terms of visualizing entire chains of information, it was very difficult, and then completely impossible for them to compare two different chains together. So that's why we're learning to draw it out, to really physically embed this in our nervous system. It's a very, very important practice, okay? So I'm going to give you some of my observations about the way these two channels interact, okay? And if you have any other observations that come up or questions or anything, bring them up, because this is important. Remember, dialogue and this Lun is the most important part of our Min Jie process, okay? So my observation is that very basically, one of these channels goes into the chest and the other goes away from the chest, okay? So this is our four great convergences orientation. So liver pericardium relationship supports a continuous flow from the feet through the chest and out the hands, okay? One thing that's interesting is the beginning of the liver channel is the end of the pericardium channel, okay? Meaning that the liver points on the toes are the beginning of the flow for the liver, and the points on the fingers are the end of the flow for the pericardium. If you look at them as if we are like in a balanced way, that with the hands and the feet being equivalent. Okay. But this is a single direction if you look at them in a continuous flow. So they're not going in opposite directions. It's one thing that goes from the feet out the chest, okay? I find it curious that kidney 1 is not liver 1, or maybe liver 3, since Lao Gong is right in the middle of the palm. So I think that is that's a curiosity and has to do with this notion of the kidney and the pericardium connection that we were talking a little bit about yesterday. Is a very profound thing. It probably has to do with our evolution and how things had to twist to turn our knees backwards from all the other animals, like that, or most of the other animals. Okay, so there's also a lot of talk about the liver crossing over other channels in the lower leg, but the pericardium just goes straight down the middle in between the tendons in the arms there. And that might also relate to the twisting of our knees with evolution. I also suspect that there's a lot of pericardium involvement with the groove on the anterior of the shoulder, mirroring the liver's convergences at spleen 12 and 13 in the inguinal groove. So that's something to keep in mind. There are probably places and ways that the pericardium crosses the lung in that way. The pericardium starts in the upper jiao and moves down through the sanjiao, and the liver moves up from the lower jiao up into the chest. So it looks like the liver and the pericardium converge in all three jiao, going in opposite directions. That's interesting. So they're meeting together in all three jiao. The liver continues all the way up through the throat, right, and then all the way up to Du20. Its low channel separates at liver 5 and then connects with the gallbladder channel and then comes up to the genitals. But the pericardium low separates at P6 and flows up the channel to go to the pericardium and the heart. Okay, so there's the heart and the genitals there again when we contrast the two. The Jingbian divergent channels, okay, with the liver, it diverges from its channel foot and goes up to the pubis to connect and converge with the gallbladder in the pubis, okay? But the pericardium diverges from its channel below the axilla there, and then it goes in the chest, and it connects and communicates with the sanjiao again from the chest down, okay? So it emphasizes that down. That's probably why we can use pericardium to treat nausea. Okay, then it goes up into the neck and joins with the sanjiao, okay, and goes to that area posterior to the ear, again connecting with the sanjiao, probably communicating with the sanjiao and the gallbladder in that area. So remember that pericardium connects there, okay, it's important. On the muscle channel for the pericardium, basically follows the channel and then converges and connects with the ribs. So don't forget that connection with the ribs, okay? And then another one goes into the axilla, goes into the chest and converges in the diaphragm. Remember, everything comes into the diaphragm except for the UB. So it's interesting to see how they all flow, and that diaphragm has so much to do with the dynamic qualities of our qi. And it connects with the lung muscle channel, which is interesting as well. And probably in that area connects with the liver channel. Again, I would suspect, because the liver channel goes up into that area of the lung, and that's where the lung and the liver connect. Okay. The liver muscle channel also follows its main pathway and then winds up in the genitals, and it connects with the spleen. See? So we have Jueyin connecting with Taiyin in both of these channels. Very interesting, the kinds of things we learn when we do it in this way, right? Super interesting. Foot Jueyin ends up connecting at foot Taiyin in the genitals, and hand Jueyin winds up connecting with hand Taiyin in the chest. All right. So let all that go. I just want you to take a moment and assess how you feel right now, all these different levels. I want you to close your eyes and just try to see this channel relationship. Okay, see it, feel it, connect with it. What's the territory of this channel relationship, this name relationship between the liver and the pericardium? Okay. And then try and expand out and think of what the whole domain of it may be. And then just let it go, let it go, let it go. Okay. So See a question here. Kidney and liver share the same source. Yeah, so someone asked maybe a hint about this, is the kidney and the liver share the same source? Yeah, everything comes back down into the chong. So yeah, that's true, Shant. Oh, kidney one, you mean a kidney one. Yeah, yeah, there's all kinds of ways that this is bound because of that transformation of water into wood, right, at kidney one. Super profound. These things are super profound. They aren't random. They aren't random at all. They all have very important information for us embedded in, like that. Okay, so I want to congratulate you because we just broke into the realm of our first emergent structure. Okay, so emergent structures are what come from differentiation and convergence. Okay, so differentiation was our first weekend, convergence was our second weekend. Okay, so what happens when when these differentiations and convergences come together? It reveals emergent structures like what we're exploring right now. Okay, so emergent structures are dynamic but stable products of two or more convergent fields. Okay, they're like moire patterns. And so I'm going to give you in the chat, I'm going to give you a URL to go to. And at the break, or just as we're trundling along here, go to that URL and take a look at, hopefully it still works, I haven't checked it for a while. Take a look at what moire patterns are. So what it is it's two stable patterns, but when you put those patterns together, what happens is they begin creating other patterns that are very, very dynamic and filled with motion. So that's what these emergent structures are. It's a very, very good example of what we're talking about, okay? So our classical balance relationships are some of the most common and stable and soon, hopefully, to be well understood emergent structures, okay? So emergent structures are the territory plus the domain of a relationship, okay? So that includes the channels, the channel relationships, all the convergent points, and all the related herbs of a particular relationship, okay? So these emergent structures are really the essential building blocks of Min Jie medicine. When we really learn how to use them, and when we learn how to use them very fluidly, it's incredible what we can do, okay? So what else was I saying about emergent structures? They include everything we just talked about, plus a set of convergent points, okay? So what are the convergent points for the name relationship between the liver and the pericardium? It's very, very easy. There's only one point where they actually converge. And that point is pericardium 1. Tianshi. It's super easy, right? Not a whole lot to remember with this. Pericardium 1 is the convergent point. So it embodies this name relationship between the liver and the pericardium. That's really, really important because if you use pericardium 1, you will be calling this relationship into play. This is a really, really important idea for us as balance practitioners because it means we're going to start using points that we might not normally use as balance practitioners, but we can use our balance principles to leverage these points to do some amazing things, okay? And why are we going to do that? We're going to do that because that's what we're going to be doing with the herbs as well, okay? So anytime we use any of these herbs that we're going to talk about, because remember, an emergent structure has to do with all the points that relate to this interaction between, in this particular relationship, and also all the herbs. So whenever we use any of these herbs, it's going to affect P1 a lot, okay? So just keep that in mind, all right? So here we go. We're going to start talking about the herbs of this system. So let's see what we can do with them. All right. First, are there any pure Jueyin name relationship herbs? Okay, because remember, the purest embodiments of a relationship, that's what we want to look for first. Okay, because then it's easy to drop them into our balance system treatment principle, and we don't have to get into all the other supporting structures and all that stuff. We can if we want to, and we get more complex, but it's good to just start with these things to begin with. Okay. All right. So we do have one. And again, this is pretty simple because remember, there aren't that many pericardium herbs. So that's another reason why we're starting here, not overwhelming us with hundreds of different possibilities. Okay. So this one herb is called let me share it with you. Ling Xiao Hua. Okay, again, the trumpet creeper. We investigated this a little bit yesterday. Okay, so it's sweet, sour, and salty, slightly cold. What do you think we could do with this herb in our Jueyin system? Sweet, sour, salty, and slightly cold. What could we do with it? Well, we know it's going to generate fluids. It's going to be a bit consolidating, slightly astringing, cleaning, dissolving accumulations. Might be good for working with hot blood accumulations in the Jueyin. Right? Maybe used for dry, hot accumulations along these this whole channel network that we talked about. Okay, and the uterus for sure. Okay, that entire network of vessels in the pericardia, especially at P1. Okay. Any other ideas when you might want to use something like this Ling Xiao Hua? I'm gonna stop this so I can see the share. Any other ideas? Ling Xiao Hua, not Ling Viao Hua. Basically, that's it, right? A little bit consolidating, a lot of generating fluids and dissolving at the same time. This gives you an idea. Okay, so now even though Ling Xiaohua is the only pure Jueyin herb, okay, there are a couple of others we might be interested in as balance practitioners. Okay, you can tell me if you're interested or not. So those two herbs, we've talked about them before. And yeah, it's important to understand that I will be giving you these frequently, same herbs again and again and again through different perspectives. So what are they? Right here, Chai Hu and Chuan Xiong. Hang on, I want to change this a bit so we don't have to deal with that. There we go. Okay, Chai Hu and Chuan Xiong. Okay, they both enter the liver and the pericardium, so we got that name relationship going on, huh? But look here, just like we talked about before. These are perfect balance herbs, aren't they? Sanjiao pericardium, liver, gallbladder, liver. Sanjiao pericardium, gallbladder, liver. Okay, so you think we might be using these two herbs kind of a lot when we're doing balance treatments that relate to this Jueyin name relationship? Yes, I hope so. And look, Chuan Xiong even goes through the Chong as well. That brings us back to our kidney 1 idea, okay? So why is the Chong there? With all this blood activation with the Chuan Xiong. So it's no surprise the Chong is getting activated. But there's no way that would happen with chaihu, even though they have identical tastes and pretty much identical territories. So what are those differences between those two? Bitterness, they're both bitter and acrid, they're both aromatic, okay? One is cold and one is warm. So that's a big part of it, okay? It's either cold or it's warm, okay? So spicy and warm is going to do something, spicy, bitter, and warm is going to do something very different than spicy, bitter, and cold. I can't stop using the word spicy instead of acrid because that's how I originally learned it. Like that. So we're going to be using these two herbs probably a lot when we're treating this name relationship. Okay. So even though honestly, I tended not to use a whole lot of chaihu. I've actually used it more over time as I've gotten more familiar with using it. But we have to be really careful because the chaihu, because of the acridity and the bitterness, we have to always make sure to balance it a lot. Usually with baishao, but with baishao and other blood herbs, so that we don't dry out the liver and we don't create a problem with the ascending quality of the chaihu. So historically, I have not used it a lot, but I've used it a lot more over the last few years because I've learned how to use it carefully. So I just want to say that about chaihu. All right. So other Jueyin herbs, they aren't as purely Jueyin, but we can notice certain tendencies in them. Most notably, a lot of them add a heart tropism. Most of them add a heart tropism. So that sort of emphasizes the pericardium aspect of these herbs. So this is another one that we did yesterday. Remember Zihua Di Ding. So we've got the stomach paired with the pericardium. We've got the liver paired with the pericardium. And the heart doesn't really, so we have this dangling heart tropism here, okay. But because the pericardium connects with both the stomach and the liver, we can say that Di Ding, just like we said yesterday, is definitely slanted toward treating the pericardium issues, okay? So even when we're treating this Jueyin name relationship, we want to understand that Zihua Di Ding is going to lean more into the pericardium, especially with that extra heart tropism there, okay? So again, this is differentiating. Okay. So we could imagine be used for heat impinging on the pericardium. That's one of the things it's used for. It's not hard to figure that out. Bitter, acrid, and cold. Also, remember, there's something else that shows up here, heart and stomach. Remember what we talked about a few classes ago, okay? Whenever you see heart and stomach tropisms, it tells us that the herb is treating the throat. Why? Because the heart and the stomach channels converge in the throat. So you can expect that some of the classical indications for Zihua Di Ding are going to be for infections in the throat, heat in the throat, okay? So let's keep moving. Another Jueyin name relationship herb that is super powerful and important is this one, Sanqi or Tianqi. So what do we have going on here? Well, here's the liver and the pericardium, but then we've got these other things added on as well. So it looks like we have the yang ming here, plus the spleen. So liver, pericardium, yang ming, plus the spleen. Okay, so I want you to get used to looking at these lists of tropisms in this way, how to break it down. What are the simplest ways to break down what we're looking at? Instead of this long line like, wow, what the heck? how in the world are we going to work with all of these different channels? But if you look at it in this way, if you see how they all naturally aggregate together, it actually gets pretty simple. So what does that mean? Okay, so we've got, it's definitely treating the Jue Yin here, okay, the Yang Ming, and what? It's slanting in the Yang Ming, it's slanting more toward the stomach aspect of the Yang Ming. Why? Because the spleen is supporting the stomach. We have this strong relationship between the spleen and the stomach, whereas the spleen doesn't really relate so directly to any of these other ones. You understand? This is how we break down the dynamics, the inner dynamics of these herbs. How does it work? You just look at the channels and say, okay, what are the balance relationships that are going on between these channels? And you can tell exactly where the effects of that herb are going to wind up going to. Exactly where. Okay. And you can also tell how those herbs are going to interact with the other herbs, because you could just compare what those motions are in your mind. Okay. Or on a piece of paper, which is what we're learning about right now. Okay. What else do we want to say about it? Okay. So Sanqi, it hooks up the entire Yang Ming. Okay. So it gives a strong emphasis on cleaning through the Yang Ming. Cleaning. Why? Because it's got that bitterness, okay, slight bitterness. Okay. So again, it boosts that stomach role, the stomach's role with that extra spleen tropism. Okay. And the spleen is also called in to help to control the blood in this case. Okay. And this is, by the way, this is the only Jue Yin herb, Jue Yin name relationship herb that does not have a heart tropism. Okay. So Sanqi is working more with the spleen aspect of controlling the blood than with the heart. Sanqi spleen, Tianqi spleen. Just keep remembering that. Okay. It's working through the spleen. Okay. So here's another one that we also to yesterday. Another one of my favorites, which is Pu Huang. Liver, pericardium, there we go. Spleen and heart. Okay. So the spleen and the heart reinforce each other. Okay. So this is kind of one kind of a relationship. That spleen and heart's a neighbor relationship there. So heart is going to be more emphasized here with the Pu Huang than the spleen. Right? They are connected, but the spleen supports the heart in the neighbor relationship, doesn't it? So the heart is going to be a little bit more, but we can say heart and spleen for sure, but the heart is going to be a little bit more predominant because it has that support from the spleen. Okay. So the Pu Huang uses the spleen plus the heart to control the blood. Okay. And the Jue Yin, that Jue Yin aspect sort of is the blood. We can look at it that way. Okay. Let's go to another herb that we also got into a little bit yesterday. That herb is Mudanpi. Okay, so we got our liver and pericardium, but look here. We have the heart and the kidney instead modifying, okay? So this is really interesting, okay? So this is actually a double name relationship herb, isn't it? Okay, liver, pericardium, heart, and kidney. Jue Yin and Xiao Yin. Double name relationship. So this is emphasizing name relationship. So remember, herbs can fall into different categories, and we're going to have a whole series of classes, I guess, starting in the fall, on all the things we can learn by examining these shifts of category. Okay, but this is interesting, this heart and the kidney. So is that really controlling the blood? Well, it's moving the blood. It's got that bitterness and the acridity, like well, these other ones have more sweet, huh? So this has more bitter. Okay, so you can look at Sanqi and Pu Huang. They're using the sweet and bitter. Some acridity here. So it's interesting to compare these things. How are they working? what actually is the effect on the blood? Bitter plus acrid with the danpi. So it's cleaning, it's opening, it's descending a bit, and it's activating. It's cool. Okay, so even in this little spread here, we got sanqi, which is warm, pu huang, which is neutral, and danpi, which is cool. So it's also giving you an idea of when you want to use them. Okay, good enough for that. Next, Jueyan herb is going to be, see if we can fit it on the page here, danshen, which is just bitter and cool. Okay, so this is sort of a pure example of what I'm talking about: liver and pericardium and the heart. So this is just has that dangling heart tropism. So remember, a dangling tropism means that a channel tropism, it doesn't have any internal relationships. So do we remember what it's going to do? It's going to go looking for somebody to hook up with. Okay, so that heart, when we use the danshen, is going to go looking for somebody to hook up with. Okay, so that helps us to understand. Remember a couple classes ago, I think it was our Shermu, we were talking about something around the blood, working with the blood, and then she mentioned the flow formula. So flow formula has a really interesting quality to it because it synergizes the Jueyan dimension of the Tianqi and provides its missing heart tropism. So that flow formula is what? Okay, who knows what is in the flow formula based on what I just said? I'm going to take a look and see what are the components of the flow formula, please, all you San Diego people. Please share it right now for anybody who doesn't know. Flow. Danshen plus sanqi. Okay, this is what we call a very stripped down formula. Okay, not even any gansao. Okay, danshen plus the sanqi. Okay, so let's go back to our herbs. Here we go. Okay, so we can understand danshen plus the tianqi, it's going to supply that missing heart tropism, isn't it? So they couple together in a really interesting way. So if we look, danshen plus the sanqi, I'll put them right next to each other so we can see it easier. Ding. Ding, like that. See? So we can see what is it that cancels out. So we got liver and pericardium. Those are canceling out. So then we have this heart here, stomach and the spleen, remember? So we have the stomach and the large intestine that are also there in that Yangming relationship. But then we have the spleen, which hooks together with the stomach. So this is a little bit spleenish. Remember, sanqi's a little bit spleenish. Danshen's a little bit heart-ish, right? So then we have a spleen-heart connection between the two of them. It's a pretty cool idea. I like it. Okay. So that's the logic of it. So we can go through this a little bit. I think you understand, okay? That spleen-heart connection. So that's a good combination. Using the spleen-heart connection to control the blood. So what do we use it for? So it's interesting because flow actually is missing any tropisms to the kidney or the gallbladder or the small intestine channels. So it doesn't really affect the heart system, does it? No tropisms to kidney, gallbladder, or the small intestine. So we're not really talking about the heart here. So we want to be careful in our differentiation of when we would and would not use flow for blood issues. So how do we differentiate between the heart and the pericardium blood issues? It's not easy. So if we were going to bring up our balance table 1 again, let's go way back to balance table 1. Here we go. I'm going to do a new share. There's a balance table 1. Very good. Okay, let's look on the heart line. Okay, heart, we've got kidney, gallbladder, small intestine, and spleen. Pericardium, we've got the liver, stomach, sanjiao, and the kidney. So the kidney in both the heart and the pericardium will kind of cancel each other out. They both go through the kidney. So they both have a Xiaoyang aspect, okay? Or they both have a Xiaoyin aspect in that way, okay? So the heart channel balance relationships bring energy away from the head via the gallbladder, don't they? Okay, and pericardium channels bring energy to the head via the sanjiao. Heart brings energy to the head via the small intestine. Pericardium brings energy away from the head via the stomach. So it's not easy to differentiate between these things if we're looking at somebody, but we have to do what we can, okay? Just because it isn't easy doesn't mean that we can't understand it, right? Doesn't mean it isn't real and important just because we don't understand what it is, okay? So we could let those Xiaoyangs cancel each other out. So we can cancel out the gallbladder and the sanjiao. But it's interesting, isn't it, how this works? Upper jiao and lower jiao, okay? So that would leave us with the heart, the kidney, the small intestine, and the spleen. And with the pericardium, the liver, the stomach, and the kidney, okay? The kidneys already canceled each other out. So we're down with the heart, the small intestine, and the spleen, and the pericardium with the liver and the stomach after everything else kind of cancels each other out through bonding. So that leaves us with yang, fire, and yin, earth for the heart, right? Yang, fire, small intestine, yin, earth, the spleen. And interestingly, yang, earth, and yin, wood for the pericardium. Or we could say, because the pericardium is both wood and fire, we could say it is, it'd be more perfect to say that the pericardium is yang, earth, and yin, fire, and the heart is yang, fire, and yin, earth. That's how that works, okay? So the spleen and the small intestine have a Biajing relationship, so they're internally stable. Liver and the stomach don't have a direct balanced relationship, do they? So the stomach is going to go looking for a partner there, okay? So the pericardium might be a little less stable. The yang, earth, is going to be searching for a partner in that way. Okay, so that yang, fire, small intestine, yin, earth with the spleen, they have a relationship that's a little bit draining for fire if we do the bazi, because that's a shangguan relationship, okay? But it's supportive of the earth. It's a yin relationship. The yang, earth, stomach, and the yin, wood, liver have a relationship that's controlling for earth. That's zhenguan, right? And draining for wood, zhencai relationship. So I'd say if we really compare, so we use all these different systems to compare the two herbs, like that. So I'd say in comparing them, we'd need to differentiate what channels were most involved with the patient's condition at the time, basically. Okay, and then base what we're doing on just on literally what we're seeing, not trying to figure too much out again, right? Okay, that's where the coherency is. You can have a perfectly coherent formula, but if it's not coherent with the patient in the moment that you're treating them, it's not going to be a coherent treatment. Okay, so remember, that's the most important thing. So in any case, flow actually has exactly the kind of simplicity and elegance that we're looking for when we're learning how to prescribe. Okay, only 2 herbs. Those 2 herbs synergize with each other to create a specific effect. Okay, is that a formula? Some people call it a formula, some people won't, but it is a tool. Okay, if that tool gets you what you want in the most elegant way without causing any other problems, then that's your formula. Okay, so this kind of minimum number of ingredients, maximum efficiency combination. Okay, that has a name that we talked about a little bit before. In Min Jie terminology, we call it jazz cluster. Okay, so why is it called jazz cluster? Okay, so Miles Davis actually first coined that term, jazz cluster, because he discovered that they're actually emergent structures in music. Okay, so it was actually through Miles Davis that I started understanding what these emergent structures are and how to use them. Okay, so he understood and he saw that in music, there are these simple combinations and sequences of notes that cluster together mathematically, and kind of automatically they wind up going together. Okay, so he found that jazz musicians can use those jazz clusters for specific functions, just like we can with herbs. It's the same, right? So we call them jazz clusters too. They're minimal emergent structures that are maximally elegant, that form between two herbs, mathematically and automatically. Okay, so that's why I wanted you to focus on creating these two herb combinations in the last 3 weeks. So you could begin to discover these on your own, get that rush of excitement, right? Have those light bulb moments, okay? So flow is a jazz cluster between Tianqi and Danshen, okay? Satisfies the dangling spleen of Tianqi and the dangling heart of Danshen, okay? Heavily focused on the Jueyan dimension of the blood by treating the Yang Ming and slightly bringing Tianqi into the realm of the heart, kind of like Gui Pi Tang, that kind of an idea, okay? So probably in a couple of years, we'll have a whole bunch of jazz cluster classes because it's really, really exciting territory. But we're going to be exploring a lot of them today too, okay? So just for now, let's take a break. Okay, I'll see you in a few minutes, 5 minutes.